Hello, I'm Dan Edelhart. I'm passionate about creating real life scenarios for students and strive to help them socially, physically, and emotionally. I'm a teacher and a coach. This class is EDL 856, School and Community Relations. Dr. Moody is our professor. It's June 2022. Our assignment is Module 1, Various Forms of Communication. I will include talking about my personal background, Program Learning Outcome 5, and Course Learning Outcome 5.3. My personal background, education has always impacted who I am, and I mean that sincerely. My given name has to do with and is because of education. My dad was a lifelong teacher, and if as a parent, you might understand this. When you have a kid, you want to find that perfect name. That name that doesn't remind you of that little guy that made days longer. So, there must have been a kid, and Dad and Mom said there was. His name was Danny, and they named me after him. And that's the name on my birth certificate. It's not Daniel, it's not Dan, it is Danny, and most people are surprised by that. On a side note, I can tell when I've met you in my life. From when I was born to freshman in high school, I was Danny. But when I got to high school, it all changed. It was a different ball game. And so I was Dan in high school, and I was Dan in college. But then you graduate and you send out your resume, and your resume beats you to the place of future employment, and on the resume is Danny. And so people after college call me Danny, and or a variety of things. And so education has impacted who I am. On an additional note, this happened to my son. It was at a football game, actually. My wife and I had been talking about names, and she heard the name of one of my players. And she came home and said, I've got the perfect name. She said, do you like this name? And I said, yeah, I really do like that name. He was a great kid, and he was a heck of a football player. I do come from a family of educators. As I said, my dad was a lifelong educator. He came from a big family, a big farming family. He was not the oldest, nor was he the youngest, so he did not have a chance to inherit the farm. And so he was one of 9 kids, and he was the only one to go to college and graduate from college, and he became a teacher. He was one of my first teachers and one of my first coaches, and I had him every day of my life from my first grade until and continued through my 8th grade year. My siblings also pursued education degrees. My brother did not finish and chose another route, but both my sisters became educators. One was in education for a long time, and one is still an educator. My educational background includes my undergrad from Benedictine College. I received a social science degree. I received my master's in sports administration from Wichita State University and became certified in physical education through a praxis certification. Continuing on my background, I have taught in both private and public high schools, and I have coached football, basketball, and softball. My family includes my wife, Debbie, my son, Reed, as I mentioned before, and we have a special pet, and his name is Drake. Building leadership. Why now? I'm at a crossroads. My son graduated from high school this year, and it was a great opportunity for me to pursue a different avenue and to see if this is something that I wanted to do besides the classroom, which I've loved for a very long time. An interesting point is my son is attending Fort Hays State University. I'm decked out in my Fort Hays State University gear right now, and we'll have a bet on who gets the best GPA. I look forward to learning more from each of you this summer in this session. Personal introductions. I decided to do this one first because communication actually begins with our first personal introduction. I used to tell my kids in the classroom that we used to have something called blind dates, and you get one chance to make a first impression. Right now, through social media, they know everything about the person they're going out with. And back in the old days, you didn't. It was nerve-wracking for the person walking up the sidewalk. It was also very nerve-wracking for the person behind the door. And when the door went open, there's your first impression. Given proper body language and everything they talk about and eye contact, verbal communication, verbal introduction is absolutely crucial. I love what Joanna Bloor stated in her article about special sauce. Every one of us. Why save it? right? Why save that special attention when you absolutely need it? Because a door could open that because somebody saw or somebody was engaged by you and their first impression that could change your life forever. As I said, I am a coach. And for years, that's what I was introduced at, or I would introduce myself as coach. And I'm completely fine with that. I think a lot of times when people hear coach, there's an understanding. Um, Obviously, athletics gets a lot of you know has a lot of emphasis in our society, and so when somebody says coach, they know kind of what a coach does or in charge of, and they can be positively intrigued by that. However, it could be oversimplified. They could say, "Oh, you're just a coach." So it does work both ways. However, I've again through the articles found myself reflecting, and I truly believe that. Find your story, engage people from the start, and hook them. And certainly, as a building leader, do your introductions with passion, and that might be your own personal introduction to staff or to people of the community, but it also may be of an idea that you're trying to get across. If you don't do it with passion, you probably won't be successful. Forms of communication include digital, written, and oral. Um, Excuse me as I widen this. And we by far use digital more than anything else via emails, social media, YouTube, websites, webinars, software, podcasts. Teachers do this, students do this, administration is involved in this. Many of this is provided by our school. There are certain things that we purchase on our own. Obviously, social media, your Twitter accounts, Facebook, things like that, that does cost from your own phones. Text messaging, certain apps out there. I use TeamSnap for my football. I did some research and found that I thought I liked that app. And so that was costly, not costly, but that did cost some. And then, of course, software out there that the school may not provide. I had a hard time prioritizing written and oral. First of all, I put an asterisk besides emails because it kind of depends on whether or not emails are actually considered digital or written as far as legality purposes. And so if it's considered written, we do use that a lot. I use that a lot personally. We still use letters, contracts, envoices, awards, and things like that we send home with kids that are on hard paper. Oral or written, that is in person, phone calls, and that is kind of gone by the wayside, except now I see a little bit of resurgence with Zoom. Especially if you're hosting a Zoom meeting, you allow the participants to question and answer, to chat with you, to especially live, then that interaction takes great oral skill and is a great form of communication. In person and phone calls as a coach, especially in person, when somebody wants an in-person talk with a coach or a teacher today, that kind of has a negative connotation most likely. So that's crucial that we are able to make those meetings go well. Tools I wish I were using. Our district website is powered by Google. Gabbert Communications is behind that, and they provide a lot of different options. And one of the options is a simple email, and it has a text and a voice note option. But the text and voice note option is an additional cost, and so we have not prescribed to that. As I said, there are some apps out there that cost, and typically they lure you in, and then they want up fees to make things better. Depending on the size of your group, if you do have more than 10 on a team, you probably need to upgrade it. If you want to include photos, if you want video capability, if you want to store data, you're going to have to pay for that. And of course, there's ever-changing technology. And if you run across something you like better, you're probably into a year, certainly a month contract, but could be longer depending on what you decided to go with initially. And admittingly, there are tools available out there that I'm not very proficient at, and if I were more proficient, I would use them more. Our district does have strategic policies in place, and I do follow them. We are required to sign an acceptance or a letter to that we will do that. It includes a lot of good things, but just general information, personal responsibility as an internet user, what we put out there, how we represent the school, the district, ourselves, and we all know things that we would tell our students. Social media or the internet and that type of stuff does not go away. You put it out there and you can't retract it. Although there are some things out there new right now that have come out that will let you retract things very quickly. I've heard disclaimers about blogs and about that may not reflect on the support of the district or school. They talk to us about copyright and fair use and not to plagiarize as anybody else. Profiles and identity, not to use too much information, especially with students. Personal use of social media. Again, our accounts, our Facebook, our Twitter, if we decide to do that, that we reflect, even if it's our own really, that we reflect on the school. Social bookmarking and how it can be seen by others, and URLs that can lead to other spots, landing spots that we may not initially thought we were going to. One part of the strategic policy that I think continues to grow is the adult or staff and student communication. You know, we're all about communicating with kids and getting them in the right spots and making them successful. However, that's a real delicate situation, and we are required now to have a third-person staff inclusion. Also, time appropriate. You know, 10 o'clock at night is not appropriate time to be contacting a minor. My correlation, whether it's a fielder's deciding whose fly ball it is, or students struggling in a class, or cell phone policy in school, I think communication is essential. Those involved need to know. PLO 5 emphasizes verbs such as promote, applying, engage, strengthen, and advocate in effort to improve key aspects of the educational system. And the CLO 5.3 focuses on communication, whether it be oral, written, digital, as an integral component for improvement and success. The assignment caused me to learn new modalities, review policy, and stress importance of communication. The relevancy of this assignment to me from learning to my learning because of the attention given to personal introductions and emphasis on various forms of communication. Making that first impression now means more than ever. Regarding communication, it is essential if the educational system is going to be successful. All stakeholders in the school and in the community must be engaged in formed communication as they continue to evolve are key. And finally, my self-reflection. In any relationship, this case focus is a school and community. Communication is crucial. It can be blast to the whole district or school, faculty meetings, reminders to classes, or individual progress reports, but the common denominator is keeping the communication coming, keeping people in the loop. From my experience, those involved may not always like what they hear, but they like it less when they are not informed. It is a school leader's responsibility to find the best mode of communication available. One size doesn't necessarily fit all. The better I communicate, most likely down the road, will translate to the better I will lead. My references follow. Thank you for viewing. I look forward again to dialoguing with you guys this summer. Have a great day.